night. All I remember the next morning was people banging at my door, screaming my name and asking me what was I doing. And I was like, what's going on? And they were like, hey, you have a next flight to catch in an hour or so, and there's a bus here ready to take you to the airport, and there's people waiting for you in the bus, so you're holding it. Hello, my name is Dorothy and this is Mom Unstuck. In today's video, I'm bringing you on a journey to celebrate 10 years since I moved to Canada. Yes, and I want to start by saying Happy New Year. Yes, I know we're in March, but I haven't seen you guys all year and I'm excited to be back, and I hope you can join me as I share my immigration story. So today is 1st of March 2023 and this officially marks 10 years since I immigrated to Canada on March 1st, 2013. So I'm excited to share my journey. Let me just get straight to the point, straight to the story. I don't want this video to be too long and I want you to stay tuned all the way to the end. But first, if you're new to my channel, welcome, subscribe, and hit the like button. If you enjoyed this video, please share and please comment in the comment section. I'd like to hear your immigration story. I'm sure what I'm going to share is something most immigrants can relate with. So let's get started. So I want to start by sharing my journey, how I moved to Canada, 1st March 2013. It was quite a culture shock, I must say, moving to an entirely different country where you don't know anybody. But I'm glad at least I could speak the language. I'm from Kenya, by the way, and we speak good English there. So that was quite an advantage when I moved here, because Canada is a French and English speaking country. So speaking or expressing myself or communicating wasn't that much of a problem, except the accent, of course, but that's a plus. So anyways, so the culture shock began right when I got on the plane. Guys, this was my first time ever getting on an airplane. I had never flown before. I had never left my country, Kenya, before. So you can imagine the culture shock, getting on a plane all by myself, flying over 24 hours to a country I have never been to. And that was quite an experience. I remember, I don't know whoever booked my flight to come to Canada, but it had the longest layovers. I remember first when we left Nairobi, we landed in Qatar, and I had to spend a night in Qatar, which I was not expecting. But I guess whoever had booked my flight, God bless them, had arranged for a hotel. So I ended up spending a night in a hotel, a very nice hotel, which also had buffet breakfast for the next morning. So this is what happened. I land in Qatar. Of course, I'm naive, I'm confused, I'm exhausted, and then I find out that I'm actually not going into another flight. I'm getting to spend the night there, and it was actually a smooth transition. They booked me into my hotel, I checked in, and guys, I was so exhausted that I passed out. I didn't care about food, I didn't care about anything. I just took a shower and got in bed. And guys, I could not wake up the next morning. I didn't even know if it was night or day. I just slept through the night. All I remember the next morning was people banging at my door, screaming my name and asking me what was I doing. And I was like, what's going on? And they were like, hey, you have a next flight to catch in an hour or so, and there's a bus here ready to take you to the airport, and there's people waiting for you in the bus, so you're holding everyone. You better get out and get in the bus. So I remember scrambling to get my stuff, getting into the bus all confused and frustrated. But then I was able to catch my next flight, and that's how I landed into Canada. I landed in Montreal, which is in the province of Quebec, and then I took another flight that brought me to Alberta, which is where I live today. So guys, once I landed here, the culture shock began. First of all, it was endless days of jet lag. I could not tell the time difference. It was freezing cold, way too cold. It was in March, so it was still in the dead of winter. So I remember staying at home and just sleeping throughout the day. I couldn't tell whether it was day or night. I had to be woken up to eat. I couldn't function. I was so exhausted. So about a week or so, the jet lag wore off, but still it was very cold. I didn't know what to expect if I stepped out of the house. I was obviously not well prepared for the weather. But I remember when I got picked up at the airport, the people that picked me up brought me some winter jacket and some scarves and all that, because they knew obviously I didn't land here expecting, you know, like properly dressed for the weather. So it's been like a week now. I'm settling in. I still quite can't eat. I don't have an appetite. I'm a little bit like depressed. I wasn't sure if this is the life I wanted, because guys, I had to be home all the time. Obviously I was not working. It was too cold for me to even just step out of the door. But after the jet lag wore off, I started to get acclimatized, I guess, and I was able to get some warmer clothing, and then I started going to downtown. So I used to live to a place that was very close to downtown. I literally just needed to walk to the train station, and the main mode of transportation here is train and public public transit. So I went on and got on the train, and I started dropping my resumes in downtown. I used to wake up every morning and look up different employment agencies, and then I would figure out where they were. Sometimes I'd print the maps or maybe use Google Maps on my phone and just take the train and go find the offices, drop off my resumes. And guys, I'm telling you, I did that for about 3 weeks, and within a month I landed my first job. Do you want to guess where my first job was in Canada? Yeah, that's a story for another day. I'll do a whole other video about that. So yeah, I landed my first job and I started working. But now the problem with this job was like an hour and a half away from where I lived. So to get to the job, I had to take 2 trains and a bus to get to the job. You can imagine that commute every morning, almost 3-4 days a week. It was quite a commute. I was still getting accustomed to the culture, the food, the people. And let me tell you guys, as a black person or African, when you move to North America or America, you feel like you're the blackest person in that country. To be honest, you immediately realize, that's when you realize that you're black. That's when you realize, oh, I'm an immigrant. I'm not sure if I belong here. I'm the minority here. So that's how it felt. So getting used to that was quite a challenge. But I took it one day at a time. I made a few friends at my new job. And I was surprised because I worked like with teenagers. It was kind of a summer job or a spring job. So I was working with people who were way younger than me, but it was fun because I got to know them and they got to teach me about the Canadian culture and all that. Let's get to the food. That was my second culture shock. Guys, I was so worried. Every time I looked at my dad and what he was eating, I would be like, how can you even eat that? How are you even able to enjoy that meal? Everything was so strange to me, and everything tasted so stale. And I'm sorry to say that, the Canadians who might be watching, I eventually did get accustomed to the food here. But at first, I could not stand it. So I had to give myself, you know, courage to walk into a grocery store and see what I could find there that I could relate to. And luckily, I found that we pretty much have everything here that we had back home. But that was 10 years ago, so I was still getting used to some of the food. You know, when you go shopping for something like kale, the kale here doesn't look like the kale back home. You know, so I had to get used to those kind of things. But I could find the basic stuff like onions, tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, dania, which they call cilantro here. Everything was pretty much available. So I slowly got accustomed to the food. And then my next culture shock was the weather. Guys, I landed here in the middle of winter, I had never seen snow ever before in my life except in movies, and it was freezing cold. Not amount of clothing that I had brought from Kenya was enough to prevent me from freezing up. So one time my dad took me shopping and I was able to get some, you know, like the long winter coats, the boots, the mittens, the hat, the glove, everything that I could, like the scarves, everything that I could need to be able to survive this weather, being that I was actually taking public transport, so I wasn't driving yet. So, and that kind of helped. But there is one time, you know, the weather here changes so suddenly. So one time I was doing my usual drop-offs in downtown, taking my resume to the agencies. So I had looked up this new agency. I had never heard of them before, so I just looked them up and decided to walk to downtown and go drop off my resume. So when I left the house, the weather was beautiful. So I decided, oh, it's nice, the sun is out, why not put on like a light jacket? I don't even need my gloves, you know, I don't need anything heavy. Let me just put on my light jacket and leave the house. Guys, that was the worst mistake of my life. By the time I got to downtown, and first of all, here the downtown is always colder. Well, in my opinion, you know, in my experience, I find it, even to date, I still find downtown way colder than the rest of the city or some parts of the city. So I walked into downtown, and for some reason I missed my way, and I couldn't find the agency. And now, guys, suddenly the weather has changed. The sun that I saw when I was leaving the house is nowhere to be seen. It's getting cloudy. It's starting to freeze up and looks like it's going to snow any minute. And then I freaked out. I started to feel cold suddenly. I wanted to find somewhere to shelter, you know, like how we shelter from the rain back home. I couldn't do that. I was still very, you know, very new, and I was afraid to just walk into a place and shelter. So I kept walking, and now I feel like I'm getting disoriented. I can't find the agency. I kept walking and freezing. I could feel my hands getting cold. I could feel my feet getting cold, but I kept walking. I just kept walking and kept looking for the place. And then suddenly I got to a place. I just looked up and I saw the agency's name, and I walked in so fast. I remember when the lady saw me, the lady who was receiving us, she was like, "Are you okay? Do you need a coffee?" And I was like, "No, I'm not okay." And yes, I could use a coffee. I remember her making me a cup of coffee. She gave me a place to sit, and I remember hugging that cup of coffee so tight, because I just needed something to keep me warm. Oh my gosh, this was quite an experience. So anyways, I don't even remember the rest of the, you know, the interview or whatever we did there, because I was still so traumatized. I was still so cold. I just wanted to, now my worry was, how am I gonna get back home? But anyway, I guess I gathered the confidence and made it back home, because I'm here. I survived, but that was so traumatic. So guys, this has been my experience in Canada. That was the first few months of getting into the food culture, getting used to the food, the people, the work environment. And I'm gonna get into more detail about my first job here, like I said, and coming from as an immigrant to Canada and getting into the job market. That's a whole different ball game, well, in my experience. So I think I'll do that in another video, but I feel like I need to share one last story here before I end this video. So one time, we are still in the dead of winter. I've already started my new job that's far away, that I need to take 2 trains and a bus to get to, and this job I needed to start by 9 a.m. Every morning. So sometimes I'd leave the house by 7 so I can make it on time. So one time I left the house and it was extremely cold. I didn't understand what was happening that day. Like, it was so windy. You know, with winter, it's not actually the cold that, you know, that stings or that kills. It's the wind. When you combine the cold and the wind, oh my God, when that breeze, it's called a blizzard actually. They call it a blizzard. When it hits you, when that wind hits you, you just suddenly get like an instant migraine. That's exactly how I felt. Like, it got so windy, I lost one of my mittens. So now again, I'm starting to panic, I'm starting to freeze up, but I've already left the house and I have to get to work. Little did I know that actually, like the previous day or something, there had been a warning that there was gonna be a huge snowstorm, there was gonna be a blizzard, and actually people were being advised not to leave home unless they really needed to. So you can imagine, I guess I didn't watch the news the previous night or something. I never got that alert. So if I knew, I shouldn't even have left the house that day, but here I am going to my usual train station to catch the train. And guess what happened when I got on the train, guys? Because I was so bundled up, I had my winter coat, I had my underneath, I had a hoodie, I had, you know, like a few jackets underneath, my gloves, my mittens, my hat, everything, and a scarf all around. The trains used to get so packed in the morning. I don't know, I'm guessing it's still the same today. The morning trains is usually so packed because everyone is trying to get to work. Students are trying to get to school. People are trying to get to downtown. So there's actually barely any sitting room. So I remember that morning we just had to stand. I remember just holding on to the rail, which is very usual. It's very normal. And there's no social distancing in the in the train. So yeah, there we were all stuck up together. And guys, I started to feel dizzy. I started to feel, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm gonna fall. And I tried to like take off some of the extra clothes, extra layers of clothes that I had. But before I knew it, guys, I fell to the floor. I passed out right there in the train. Oh my gosh, I'm laughing right now thinking about it, but it was so scary. I passed out, and you know, some people freaked out, and someone had to ring the emergency bell for the train to stop. And I'm gonna stop this video here for today. If you want to listen to the rest of the story, tune in for part 2 of my immigration story, moving to Canada, 10-year anniversary of me living here in Canada. And I'll finish up the story and share some more in my next video. Again, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Happy 2023. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed this story, and on the comment section let me know if you can relate to my story in any way. I'd love to hear from you. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon on the next one. Bye bye.